Most people think that Eve met a deceiver in the garden. But every ancient culture before the conquest traditions told a different story. The serpent was the first teacher, the guardian of women's wisdom, the keeper of the mother's truth. So why did Eve listen? Not out of rebellion, but recognition? We inherited a version of the serpent filtered through patriarchal fear, not feminine memory. Long before Genesis was weaponized, the serpent symbolized life force rising, intelligence rooted in the body, the cyclical wisdom of birth, death, rebirth, women's intuition and regenerative power. From Africa to Mesopotamia, from the Indus Valley to early Europe, the serpent was linked to the Great Mother. Not a tempter, but a guide. In other words, the serpent meant capacity, not corruption. So when Eve encounters a serpent, ancient listeners didn't hear enemy. They heard initiation. The earliest Hebrew manuscripts describe Eve not as a naive girl, but as the mother of all living, a title usually reserved in older cultures for priestesses of the mother line, which raises a forgotten question. Why would the mother of life be threatened by knowledge? She wouldn't, unless the story itself was rewritten to control what her knowledge meant. In older Near Eastern traditions, the forbidden fruit wasn't sin. It was the ability to see with your own mind. Eve's conversation with the serpent wasn't disobedience. It was a woman exercising discernment, curiosity, self-trust, spiritual agency. The very qualities patriarchal religion later punished. Eve wasn't seduced into error. She was awakened into awareness. In pre-biblical myth, the serpent initiates the heroine by teaching her 3 things. 1, you have your own source of wisdom, not borrowed, not mediated, internal. 2, there is a cycle beneath every story you've been told. Nothing is final. Everything renews. And 3, you are responsible for your own becoming. No external authority decides your destiny. That is what terrifies authoritarian systems. A woman who thinks for herself. So the serpent's temptation wasn't moral deviation, it was sovereignty. And sovereignty is exactly what the editors of the Eve story needed to suppress. When Eve eats the fruit, the text says her eyes were opened, not poisoned, not cursed, opened. Like every initiatory myth, there's a moment when innocence becomes insight. The descent from Eden is not a fall from grace. It's the movement from unconsciousness into consciousness, a spiritual puberty, a shift from protected child to aware woman. And who delivers the threshold? The serpent, the archetype of transformation itself. You don't fear the snake when you know how to shed your own skin. When patriarchal scribes turned the serpent into Satan, they weren't just rewriting a character. They were degrading women's lineage of intuition, silencing the mother's wisdom traditions, severing humanity from earth-based spirituality, converting initiation into transgression. And most importantly, they criminalize the moment a woman listens to her own inner voice. Eve's story became a warning, not a pathway. But buried beneath the edits is the older truth. Eve wasn't tricked. She was trained. And the serpent wasn't the enemy. It was the messenger of the mother she came from. So when we ask, why did the serpent mean wisdom to Eve? The answer is simple. Because in every tradition, before the patriarchal rewrite, the serpent was the language of the divine feminine. Eve recognized a symbol her bloodline had carried for thousands of years. She wasn't seduced. She remembered. And remembrance is the final act of liberation. Beyond the chaos into the light.